Joe, good to see you. How you doing? Evening. How you been? Pablo, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Moomin, good to see you as well. How you doing? So, bro, long time. It has been a long time. How you been? Pure, good to see you as well. Evening. How you doing? How you been? JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and all CMF. Happy Monday. Let's go, JP. Good evening, Miles. Mac, good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening. Autistic. Hi, Miles. How's things? Things are great. Good to see you as well. Autistic. How you been? How's things? Always a treat to get the latest news. Let's go, Monica. How you doing? Good to see you as well, Monica. How you been? Obviously now there's a time difference as well, so the UK is 1 hour ahead. I'm hoping everybody from the CMF got the message that the UK is 1 hour ahead right now. But I said even in times of, if we do change on the basis of time, if time goes hour forward, hour backwards, or so on, that it's always 11:30 UK time on the dot. Hi, Miles. With the war on the horizon, will the markets dump? Johnny, yes, but it does depend on how the war essentially happens. Good evening, CMF. Good to see you, Orban. How you been? So, Johnny, I'll answer your question straight after I say a disclaimer of this live show. So, welcome to the CMF live show. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles, and I'm hosting live that you're watching right now. This is episode 289 of the CMF Live. And in this live show, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, vital information that you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. And the disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. So, welcome to the CMF Live, which is the first time ever. If you're a regular, let's go CMF. By the way, thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who has liked this live on X. I'm getting notifications from X. Thanks so much to everyone who's liked this live from the CMF on X, who's retweeted this live, essentially, if you watch this from X. And I put a comment outside live as well, and hashtag DXO beyond me as well. I liked each other's comments. So thanks so much to everyone on YouTube who's watching right now as well, who has liked the live also. If you haven't done that, CMF members, just take 5 seconds to go outside the live, like, retweet, and then come back in if you get a chance. Now, there's a lot of things essentially that's been happening around the world, and especially based on the tariff situations that's coming up April 2nd. So we have the tariff situations on April 2nd, which is adding a little bit of tensions towards the market space, towards the stock market and the crypto market space. And then obviously we have the scenario of the war brewing as well, with Trump not backing down, and neither is the Iranian government. And that's adding tensions towards the market space as well. And then recently there's the situation with Russia brewing up slightly again, according to some news sources. So all these factors are essentially putting weight on the market space, which is making it slightly volatile, essentially, not drastically, but slightly volatile. It could be a lot more worse, believe me. If you've been long enough inside the crypto space, you would know it could be a lot more worse than what it is standing at right now. But in terms of the news that we're going to talk about on tonight's live, we're going to talk about tariff news, we're going to talk about regulation news, we're going to talk about essentially institutions and banks coming inside the crypto space, we're going to talk about the CFTC, the FDIC, and essentially world news in general. But before we do go for any news topics, the first one essentially being regarding tariffs. Let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the tariff news. So let's see what's going on inside the comment section first. Hi, Miles and CMF. Dennis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well. How you been? How's things? George. Hi, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well. George, how you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Bull XRP. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Can you play some... What? Morning, Miles and CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. Morning. How you doing, Shelly? How you been? So let's go back to Johnny's question before we do go through the news. So Johnny's question essentially was regarding the war situation that's happening, which is adding some factors of making the market space volatile. The war situation is happening at the exact same time as tariffs. So what I'll do is I'll let you know about the tariff news first, and then we'll get into the war scenario, and then we'll move on to the next news on tonight's slide. So regarding tariffs, crypto markets are facing declines right now amidst the Asia tariff essentially response. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies saw declines in value on essentially March 31st, today, 2025, as China, Japan, and South Korea has responded to the US tariffs. Now, Trump is obviously placing tariffs on every country around the world, pretty much, unless those countries decided to wave the white flag towards the United States, which some countries already have decided to wave the white flag. Some European countries decided to wave the white flag and said, they don't want to get tariffed. They would rather just work with the US. The UK isn't going to get tariffed either. They would rather just work with the US and so on. But some countries decided to go head on head with Trump. Now, Asian countries are obviously feeling the burn of this situation. For example, China is getting tariffed heavily, and 2nd of April is coming around, and that could be more tariffs for China, essentially. But so here it is. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies saw declines essentially today. China, Japan, and South Korea responded to the US tariffs, signaling heightened global trade tensions, which is adding a little bit of a strain on the crypto market space. Bitcoin essentially experienced a decline of 2% and a continued bearish trend. Market tensions heightened due to actions by China, Japan, and South Korea in response to US tariffs. The broader crypto market space showed essentially negative impacts, with major cryptocurrencies recording quite a bit of a loss. Investors are monitoring the implications of tariff responses. Institutional investors are still accumulating Bitcoin, indicating confidence in their long-term prospects on that matter. Meanwhile, XRP, ADA, Solana, Doge, Ethereum are still seeing some sort of declines, not major declines, but like 1% downwards and so on. The Fear and Greed Index remains in the fear section, showing ongoing investor concerns. The ongoing trade tensions are also casting a shadow over the crypto market space, with Bitcoin's recent dip reflecting a broader economic uncertainties, says essentially James Wang, senior analyst at crypto research firm Watcher Guru. Bitcoin's downturn follows patterns seen during previous trade tensions affecting financial markets. Historically, Bitcoin essentially has had both safe haven qualities and ties to traditional market spaces. Institutional essentially accumulation raises hopes for stability despite volatility, and there are essentially news going around that Michael Saylor essentially strategy has essentially put a new recent purchase on Bitcoin. They've brought another tremendous amount of Bitcoin as well. Data reveals that the economic stability pressure on global scales. Experts anticipate challenges, but also see Bitcoin's potential as a hedge in economic essentially uncertainty, and regulatory responses and their essentially impacts are to be closely watched moving forward. So we have the situation of essentially tariffs building up. We have the situation of April 2nd coming around. That's building up towards the market space as well. And then we have the situation of war that's adding more onto essentially more strains on the crypto market and the stock market. And unfortunately, Bitcoin does tend to follow the NASDAQ. And if the NASDAQ goes down, so does Bitcoin, and so does the essentially rest of the crypto space. And that's only because we don't have rules and regulations as of yet, which means crypto assets aren't able to decouple themselves from Bitcoin's footsteps. And if Bitcoin follows the NASDAQ, so does the rest of the market space, unfortunately. But regarding tariffs, as I said, some countries have already waved the essentially white flag. They don't want to get tariffed by essentially by Trump in any sort of a way, which are good signs. Now, also a few nights ago, I revealed on this live show essentially that there are two perspectives regarding April 2nd. There has been essentially some perspective coming out from Bloomberg, which suggested that the 2nd of April tariffs could actually be positive for the crypto space. But then there's the other outcome, essentially, where it could be a negative play for the crypto space because it's just adding more strains on the essentially market space. Now, the reason why Bloomberg suggested it could be a positive regarding cryptos on April 2nd is because Bloomberg saw it as a way of traditional market spaces are going to go through some turbulence, which means alternative market spaces should do better, which was essentially their perspective on that matter. But then there's also the outcome that, it really doesn't work out that way, and instead it just goes sideways. So both outcomes you really have to consider in this moment in time. Now, the other strain that's adding on the market space is essentially Russia. Putin is apparently not calming down, and things are escalating between Ukraine and Russia, which is not good because that's going to add some turbulence towards the market space as well. But we also have the other situation, which is a new situation, which is Trump versus Iran, which is essentially the US versus Iran. Now, the US has sent multiple letters, you could say, to the Iranian government to have a sit down with the Iranian government. The Iranian government have rejected to have a sit down with Trump. And even the Iranian government did say once that, they're willing to go to Saudi Arabia, and for America to come to Saudi Arabia, and then Iran and Saudi, essentially Iran and the US can have a conversation in Saudi Arabia. But essentially, America declined this offer and said, if you want to come to the table, that the US has to come to Iran to have a sit down, not in Saudi Arabia to discuss things about Iran. And the reason why the US said this, or the reason why Trump said we have to come to Iran to have a sit down, not in Saudi Arabia, is because Iranian diplomats, for example, are allowed to go to New York and do essentially sit downs in the past with, under Joe Biden's essentially presidency and so on. So Trump said that, if your diplomats are allowed to walk into New York and essentially attend all of these diplomatic essentially meetings, then why can't US politicians or US diplomats essentially enter into Iran's borders and have a conversation with you directly, rather than essentially you making them go to Saudi Arabia and so on? Which I completely understand from Trump's perspective, 100%, because if that was happening the other way around, makes sense. Now, the reason why Iran doesn't want the US to enter its borders and have a diplomatic sit-down is because the Iranian government is scared about essentially a revolution happening in Iran, where the people of Iran get rattled up and overthrow essentially the Iranian government, which is on the verge of happening. 80% of Iranian people are rejecting the Iranian government. So the Iranian government is scared that if they let the US enter essentially if they let US diplomats enter Iran, then the US diplomats will go around and talk to essentially Iranian generals, for example, of the Iranian military, the two military essentially Iran has and so on, and that some conversations might spark up to overthrow the essentially Iranian government. So that's why Iran is rejecting it completely. Now, on the news, you're also saying Iran is, screaming and shouting and saying, that they're going to stand strong in front of the US and so on, and that they're not afraid of Trump, they're not afraid of the US and so on. However, a lot of people might not know this essentially, but Iran has a particular day every year. There's one particular day every year that people that are brainwashed by the Iranian government and people who are a part of the Iranian government would protest in Iran one particular day of the year, where they will essentially burn the American flag and burn the Israeli flag, which is very wrong to do. Now, interesting enough, this year, essentially, the Iranian government decided to not say the words death to America and instead say death to Israel, for example, is what the Iranian government decided to do this year, which shows their sense of they're really fearing the US. Even the person on the microphone who tells the brainwashed vegetables to essentially say death to America, he stopped and said to everybody in the crowd that was a part of the Iranian government. Some people were getting paid off to be there. Some people just brainwashed to protest death to America and Iran. But even the person on the microphone who shouts these words and the rest of the brainwashed sheep of the Iranian politicians, follow his exact words, he said on the microphone by mistake, he said death to America. And he said, no, don't say that anymore. Just say death to Israel, for example. This is the signs of how they are fearing the US. But on the news, CNN and so on, they will, exaggerate it and say the Iranian government is ready to go up against the US. The Iranian government is not backing down no matter what, and so on and so on. But the reality of it is they're even scared to say the words death to America on a holiday, which they say it every year. But this time around, because it's a Trump presidency, they were even scared to burn the American flag, which they normally do every year, and even say the words death to America. This is actually signs of how much bullshit comes out of the Iranian government, of they're not, fearing the US. They even fear saying the words death to America, which they say every year, which just shows you how scared the Iranian government really is. So on that basis, the chances of the Iranian government, with all this saying of we're going to missile the American embassy, the American essentially military bases in the Middle East and so on, is what the Iranian government says. The reality of it is they're never going to do that. They're too scared to do that. If they do that, it's basically a death wish for the Iranian government, because the US military is basically in control of Trump. And Trump is not a leader that you want to double cross or go against, because it's just a losing battle. It's not Sleepy Joe who's controlling the US. It's not Obama who's controlling the US, and so on and so on. This is Trump. And this is Trump's second time becoming president. And he knows how to play his cards now. And that's why the Iranian government is scared. So all I wanted to say is essentially that for people out there that are, thinking that this war might become this massive scenario of Iran missiling military bases, or essentially the US going in and it's going to be some huge military action, The Iranian government is scared to say the words death to America, which they say every year. They were scared to say it this year, a few days ago. They were scared to say the words death to America, but on the news, the Iranian government will come out and say, you know, they're not feared by Trump. They don't care about the US military. They will stand up for whatever they want, and so on and so on. But you can see the reality of it when they're scared to say the words of death to America, never mind actually facing America on a one-on-one army situation. But I just wanted to put that out there just in case people really thought that this war is going to become something drastic, because the longer, this exaggeration of tension is there, the more tension is going to be on the market space, for example, the crypto market space or the stock market space, which, as I said, Bitcoin follows the Nasdaq's footsteps. Now, a lot of people might say essentially that, how do I know this information or so on? If you're watching this for the first time ever, I'm Persian myself, which means I'm Iranian. So obviously I can give you first-hand information that comes out of Iran, essentially, of what's actually happened between, by just essentially watching the Iranian news, not because I have some inside source in Iran, but because I understand essentially Persian, which means I could watch the Iranian news and give you their perspective essentially of what's coming out. But that's essentially what's happening in Iran. So, but the situation of Russia and Ukraine, Putin seems like, he's hyping up again a little bit. That could add some tensions towards the market space. The tariff situation could, in terms of Bloomberg, be positive. In terms of another outcome, be negative. But the Iran and American situation is just a funny one. And I do believe, as I said beforehand, that there are two perspectives on this essentially outcome. The Iranian situation could be a domestic situation, which means it wouldn't affect the market space in any sort of a way, which means the people of Iran would overthrow essentially the Iranian government. And they're fully aware of this essentially happening. In fact, even the Shah of Iran, which some people might know him as Shah, the majority of people in the older generation will know him as Shah. The newer generation probably know him as the Crown Prince of Iran. He's even had conversations with general military generals in Iran, and said to them that that he is coming back and that they have to choose their sides, essentially whose side they're going to be on, the Iranian government side or essentially the Crown Prince of Iran side and so on. So that's what's happened. They're trying to overthrow the Iranian government, because if you essentially have control of Iran, you have control of the Middle East. It's how it is. You control Iran, you control the Middle East. And that's what essentially they want. They want to, bring tensions down in the Middle East. And the best ways to do it is to get rid of the Iranian government, 100%. I agree with everything that Trump is doing, and I stand by Trump. And 80% of the Iranian population stand by Trump. 80% of Iranian people inside Iran, the country, stand by Trump and not with the Iranian government. But just want to put it out there. So this could be a domestic situation. If there's a domestic situation that overthrown the Iranian government, the people do it, then it wouldn't affect the crypto market space. If it's essentially a international situation, because Trump did say that he will, essentially miss out certain parts of Iran. And Trump is not a man to be, joking or so on. He's a very serious man. If he says he will do it. I'll give you an example, because a lot of people might think Trump might be bluffing when it comes to war, and that Trump doesn't really have the power he says he has. The first time around when Trump essentially became president of the United States, the first presidency he had when Trump became president, a man that was a very, very powerful man in the Iranian military. He was very well known as the butcher, essentially inside the Iranian military. He was a very powerful man inside of Iran. He's known as the butcher, essentially a man by the name of Soleimani. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because this man, in Trump's first presidency, said that Trump is a nobody. Trump is, just a buffoon. Trump has no power. Trump is broke. Trump is a moron. Trump is this orange, essentially potato, and so on. He said so many insults to Trump. And this man that said all these insults to Trump was, again, a very powerful man in the Iranian military, extremely powerful man. And then what Trump did next was obliterate him. This man turned into dust. He got a direct missile to where he exactly was after he said those words. And this man, who was untouchable, literally untouchable by the Iranian government, by Yemen, by Syria, by Palestine, this man was untouchable by all Middle Eastern countries. After he said those words to Trump, he got direct missile and he turned into dust. And that is why the Iranian government is scared of Trump. And that was Trump's first presidency. That was Trump's first presidency, and that man got turned to dust. A direct hit. So this is why the Iranian government, as much as the Iranian government wants to pretend that they can go head to head with essentially Trump, the first time around, it didn't really end well for them. And all they said was a few insulting words. And the person that said this turned to dust. But again, the news will never tell you this. The news will say, Trump is doing this and that, he's bullying and so on and so on. But the news never tells you the other side of the story, because the news only wants to tell you half the story. And it's always the half that is either lies, is complete BS, or it's against Trump. That's the part the news will only tell you. But yeah, that's essentially the real story of it. But again, the reason why I brought this up is essentially because so you can have an understanding of, they don't really have the kahunas to stop this war. As much as Iran's government pretends they want to stop this war with Trump, they don't have the kahunas. So this war could pretty much end without even starting, which means the people of Iran could potentially overthrow the Iranian government before this war even starts, which means it shouldn't impact the crypto market space. So the only things that could impact them, but the news will still exaggerate it so it impacts the market space. Don't get me wrong, and the news will still exaggerate it so that it can impact the market space and people will get fearful and so on. But just a heads up, essentially, it won't be some drastic World War III type of situation as if the news is going to put it. But the tariff situation and the Russia situation is actually what's putting those tensions on. But again, as I said, don't get me wrong, the news is obviously over-exaggerating the Iranian war with the US, that it's going to turn into some World War III type of situation where Iran gets involved, and Russia gets involved, and China gets involved, and the US gets involved, and so it becomes this big, colossal war. The reality of it is Russia's already backed down, essentially. China's not going to risk their contracts of imports and exports because then their economy will collapse. So the news is going to over-exaggerate it. What I am trying to say is don't panic sell in any sort of way. Well, it's not financial advice in any sort of a way, but just a heads up for everybody. But yeah, I just want to let everyone know about that. Now, before we go through, before we go through the next news, let's go towards the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'm reading everybody's comments one by one, as I always do, and then we'll go through the next news on tonight's live. The next news we're going to talk about, it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of financial news happening, on the scene. There's obviously the tariff situation, the Russian-Ukraine situation, and the over-exaggeration of the Iranian war. But also behind the scene, there's regulations happening. Institutions are lining up to help blockchain companies go public. There's a lot of things actually happening behind the scenes in terms of regulations, institutions, and banks entering the market space, which means that people shouldn't shift their focus away from the institutional clientele that's entering towards the market space and focus on the tariffs and the wars, because all of that is temporary. But what is long-lasting is the regulations and institutions that are entering the market space. But before we go through the next news, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see where we were at. We were at here. Hi, brother. Come on. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? Morning, all. Suze, good to see you. How you doing? Morning. How much will it dump drastically or slightly? It shouldn't dump drastically. It should jump slightly. But then again, market manipulation could always factor in and, make it a little bit more of a panicky mode situation. Someone stated that big banks like JP Morgan, etc., will not utilize crypto due to creating their own alternative avenues for cross-border payments, etc. They have just been waiting for regulations. Lots of your thoughts. What's my thoughts regarding JP Morgan? And some people are saying that JP Morgan won't utilize crypto assets because they'll just create their own alternative systems. Well, JP Morgan has created their own alternative systems for the longest time. They have essentially their own Onyx coin, which is not essentially, nobody from the retail section can buy it. It was always from day one and until now, probably forever, will stay essentially a banker's token, and it can only be used by commercials and so on, by commercial essentially companies and so on, not by the retail section in sort of a way. But the chances of essentially JP Morgan only sticking to their Onyx coin and not expanding into other crypto assets is slim to none. JP Morgan is a bank, and banks love money. They love the idea of making money no matter where it comes from. And how do we know this? Because JP Morgan has been fined multiple times for accepting clients and moving around money for people that they shouldn't do. So the chances of JP Morgan staying in one particular token for the rest of the eternity is slim to none. JP Morgan is definitely going to expand into other areas inside the crypto space 1 billion%, because they're a bank. Even Miles, Lee Robinson, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? But great question, Mac, because some people, might, that might be on top of their head. So great question, Mac. Evening, Miles, the CMF. Pierce, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. I hope you've had a great weekend, mate. And lots of good news for us all inside the CMF. Let's go, Addy. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been, brother? Evening, Miles and family. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Challenging times ahead. Let's go, Ian. Yep, definitely. Hi, Miles, the CMF. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Brainwashed vegetables. That was so funny. Because it is true. Miles, do you think all these negative events are coordinated? Yes. The interesting part is all of these negative news that are coming in and impacting the market space, it does seem slightly coordinated because everybody's focus is being shifted on Trump is ruining the market space, for example. Not everybody, but a lot of people, their focus has been slightly shifted because the news or crypto influencers, some crypto influencers and so on, are telling people essentially that, Trump is ruining the crypto space, or essentially tariffs are ruining the market space, and all these wars are damaging the crypto space, and we might not see a bullish movement happening in any sort of a way. But the reality of it is, behind the scenes, there's actually regulations happening. And Trump is actually trying to fix the market space. Because of Trump, the SEC dropped pretty much all of their crypto cases. Because of Trump's administration, the CFTC dropped all of their cases pretty much. Because of Trump's administration, the OCC is telling banks to start utilizing crypto assets. Because of Trump's administration, the FDIC is telling banks to start utilizing crypto assets. Because of Trump, essentially CFPB is telling banks to start utilizing crypto assets. And because of essentially Trump's administration or Trump himself, even Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, has become pro-crypto all of a sudden over time. But there's so much pro-crypto essentially happening inside of America. And all this is because of Trump's administration. So the idea that Trump is ruining essentially the crypto space is false and misinformation. Trump is actually trying to fix the crypto space. And it's because of him we have so many essentially pro-government departments that are essentially pro-crypto now and working together to establish rules and regulations. We have the White House, the CFTC, and the SEC, and Congress, and the House of Representatives all working together for the essentially crypto space to establish the rules and regulations and get them voted and approved ASAP. Essentially, they're trying to build that foundation. So while all of this is happening behind the scenes, and and then you have the institutions themselves. For example, Morgan Stanley is essentially entering the crypto space, and they're trying to help blockchain companies go public. Morgan Stanley is trying to help blockchain companies go public. Bank of American executives are trying to help blockchain companies go public. Wall Street is trying to help essentially blockchain companies go public. Citi is trying to help blockchain companies go public. JP Morgan is trying to help blockchain companies go public. And if all these essentially well-established institutions are trying to help the blockchain space go public, all these blockchain companies go public, then it really isn't a bad time then, is it? Then it must be a good time if all these major institutional players want to help the blockchain companies go public. Then it must be a good time, not a bad time as people presume it is. So this is why I say a lot of people, it's a great question as well that was asked essentially regarding Bull XRP when he said, Miles, do you think all these negative events are coordinated? In a way, yes. The timing is interesting, but it's things that needed to be done as well. Tariffs needed to be done because, America was being heavily tariffed by all of its essentially allies. And now the tables are turned. They're essentially getting aggressive towards the US. Some are just waving the white flag. But it's a great question. An attack is imminent, right? It could concede with April 2nd. Your thoughts? Also, a great question, Shelley. There's been rumors going around in Iran that America might do some sort of an attack on Iran's soil around April 2nd. That there's a possibility of an attack happening on Iran's soil around April 2nd. But what that correlates with is that the Iranian government hates the idea. So it is because there's a rumor going around that I also heard as well, and I shared it with the CMF essentially that there's an attack that it could happen on Iran's soil around April 2nd, and the other point of view essentially is what I'm trying to say is that the Iranian government hates the idea of the Iranian New Year's. They hate the idea of Persian New Year's. The Iranian government hates it because Persians are not really, Islam, pretty much. Because the Persian, essentially, New Year's correlates back to Zarathustra, which was the first religion in the world. Again, why I'm going a little bit off topic is because where the rumor essentially started from. So the Iranian government said to the Persian people that there is no such thing as the Persian Empire. There is no such thing as Cyrus the Great. There is no such thing, essentially, as the Shah, the king of Iran, and the royal family. So what happened was the day after the Persian New Year started in Iran, 80% of the Iranian population went to the Persian Empire to prove it does exist and it's not a myth. They went to Cyrus the Great's grave. They went to the Shah's house, the king of Iran's house, that's a museum now in Iran, just to prove to the Iranian government. The Iranian government hates it. You know, it was fuming that the Iranian people chose the Persian traditions, chose the king of Iran at that particular time of the years. Now, why I'm saying this? Because the New Year's of Iran is 14 days. It's the first day that counts, and in between people see each other, and then the last day, which is the 14th day, which ironically is 2nd of April. And on the 2nd of April, which is the 14th day of the Iranian New Year's, people in Iran will go outside and celebrate with families and so on. They'll do barbecues, they'll drink, and so on. And the Iranian government doesn't like the idea, again, of Iranian people celebrating essentially the Iranian New Year, the Persian New Year's in general. They don't like the idea of huge crowds of Persian people in Iran, because it could essentially, that situation could also lead to an overthrow of a revolution. So what I am trying to say is the rumor that started out of Iran could possibly also be that the Iranian government spread it around, that America might be attacking Iran April 2nd and people should not be in hotspots because they don't like the idea of the Persian people celebrating their New Year's, because they hate it, because it doesn't relate or correlate to Islam for the Iranian government, because the Persian people are not really Muslim in any sort of way. The background is Zarathustra, which is the first religion in the world. So that rumor could have easily came from the Iranian government as well. But great question, Shelley, because a lot of people don't know about that. And, you know, it's the coordination that matters. So that rumor could have easily just came from the Iranian government to stop the crowds forming on the last day of the Persian New Year's. Also, Mark Rubio, who is Trump's essentially war advisor, Mark Rubio, who essentially went to Saudi Arabia to make the deal happen between Ukraine and Russia. Mark Rubio made a speech, and he said that this New Year's the Persian people are having is the last New Year's the Persian people are having with this current Iranian government. And he said, don't get me wrong, the Iranian people don't want this government either. And he said the US is standing with the Iranian people, not with the Iranian government. And he said this particular New Year's, Mark Rubio said, is the last New Year's that the Persian people will be celebrating under this Iranian government. So even Mark Rubio said that there's a possibility of this. But again, that rumor could have easily just started from Iran. But the Mark Rubio part, if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It's on Fox News as well. Good evening, Miles. Leland, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? So the chances, Shelley, of an imminent attack, it's possible. It's very possible. You know, America essentially starting that, you know, missiling. As I said previously, Trump has missiled that man in Iran who thought he was untouchable. So it could happen. It's just the April 2nd part. It's just very coincidental from the Iranian government. Very coincidental. But great question, Shelley, because a lot of people might not know that. Now, Evening Miles and CMF Peg, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Let's go. The good people of Iran. Let's go, Ian. Greetings, Miles and CMF. Ray, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? How you doing? I'm doing great, Callie. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? He got taken out. He definitely did. Facts. Ray, thank you so much for the $5 donation. It's going straight into CMF Hedge Fund. Absolutely amazing. Ian, thank you so much for the £20 donation. That's going straight to CMF Hedge Fund as well. Absolutely amazing. Let's go, CMF. Miles is cooking as always. Best little fact show. Let's go, Ray. News manipulation. Facts, Ian. Ray and Ian, thank you so much, both of you, for the donations. Even Miles and CMF, Manny, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Thanks, Miles. I appreciate your knowledge and feedback. No problem, Mac. Anytime. Hello, Miles and CMF. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? What do you think? What do you think they are waiting for? What do I think who's waiting for? The Iran is waiting for, the US is waiting for. I don't think time is, they're not waiting for anything, because the longer this situation takes, the closer Iran gets to some sort of nuclear power, which is the last thing anybody wants, trust me. So I don't think they're waiting for it. I think it's more of they're examining which way to enter into. Early evening, Miles. Great week ahead. Let's go, Mav. Facts. V-shaped recovery is what I've been looking for. Curtis Hill, it's a possibility. V-shaped recovery is a possibility. For me, buying XRP, dumping the dip is like buying toilet paper and N95 masks before you know what. Facts. Mickey, let's go. Mohammed says, hello again, my friends. How are you? Good to see you, well, Mohammed. How you doing? Then it's gonna kick off Miles. Let's go, Ian. Hi, Miles of CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? President Trump has been making dangerous decisions in the recent period that threaten the economy worldwide because he's sacrificing a large segment of consumers from Arab and Africa. Do you still hold opinion that alt season will happen within the first 100 days of Trump's presidency? If not, what's your opinion now? I'm still holding the same opinion, and this year is still going to be an incredible year. Sure, we started the year quite good, and then we started to have some turbulence because of tariffs, but tariffs need to happen. It's the only way the US is going to get their control back. For the longest time, the US did lose control, a lot of control, and that control was being wedged over into China, and China was, growing. And China, essentially, with the help of Russia and essentially Brazil and South Africa and India, essentially creating BRICS, for example, to go against the US dollars. That's how weak the US looked, where 5 countries were coming together, building an alternative currency to go against the US dollars. And the US was doing nothing about it because Sleepy Joe was, sleeping. It's in his name, Sleepy Joe. So the US was losing power in terms of controlling the world. And Trump is trying to restore that power back to the US and try to build that strong foundation once again by using the power of tariffs. So I stand by him using tariffs 100%. And a lot of people say, why should the US control the world? Or why should any country control the world? Why can't people just, live in harmony? Why can't countries just work together and nobody should be in control? It's because we don't live in la la land. We live in a world with greed, money hungry people, and everybody just wants more power. That's the type of world we're in. And if we don't have one country in control of everything, then China could easily take Taiwan if they wanted to. Russia could easily take Ukraine if they wanted to. They could take any country if they wanted to. Any country could expand to any country if nobody's in control. But if we do have one country in control that has the loudest voice, that has the firmest hand, then nobody will step out of line and just decide to take whatever they want from anyone they can. So that is why we need to have essentially one country in control. In terms of one country in control, the US is always the better outcome. China is not a great option to be essentially the controlling country, to have the loudest voice, because if you really knew the truth about China, you really wouldn't be siding with them in any sort of a way. Putin, as much as he is a very strong man in a very strong position, you still don't want him to be the loudest voice around the world either. You would rather have the US, believe me, you would rather have the US in control of the world. Trust me. But yeah, 100%. I'm still sticking by what I said. As I said, we had a very good start to the year, and then a little bit shaky now. And we're not even that far in. I mean, we're only in March, for example. We're only 3 months into the year. We had a good start. Then we have some turbulence, which is perfectly normal inside the market space to have turbulence, but also the factor of essentially tariffs and so on. But now, after the tariff situation is going to be done, we're going to move into more regulations and essentially utility. And even as the tariff situation is happening, there's actually rules and regulations happening behind the scene. So even though there is Russia and Ukraine, situation hyping up again, Iran and US situation over exaggerated, and essentially also the tariff situation happening worldwide. Even though there's these major 3, situations happening, and world trade tensions are happening, behind the scenes, the US is still getting ready for rules and regulations. They're getting ready to pass the Genius Act. The SEC dropping cases. The SEC is working with the CFTC after a decade. There's a lot of positiveness happening behind the scenes, which more people should focus on rather than what's on the scenes. So I'm still standing by what I said, 100%. Classified. This year is going to be incredible in general. Classified, Ian definitely is. Waiting for crypto green light, I meant. Are you waiting for the crypto light, you meant? What are they waiting for? The regulations. The regulations to pass through. Pretty much the regulations. And even threatens major manufacturers, investors with his reckless decisions, and even threatens the entire world of digital currencies. it's not threatening. I wouldn't say Mohammed is threatening any sort. Well, depends, how you see it. But he's doing it to get control back. He needs to get control back. I hope that stability and peace will return to the Middle East and Europe, so that production and consumption can return to normal. Everyone can start working again. I hope so as well. Anyone heard what's happened to Sleepy Cotton Eye Joe? He's disappeared. No, I haven't heard actually. And they did a poll recently. They did a poll of the most hated democratic, essentially, politicians or presidents, for example, people who were trying to aim for presidency. Kamala Harris got the worst rating for a leader of the Democratic Party, the worst, which ironically, she was supposed to become the president of the United States. That was never going to happen. It was a pipe dream. Now, what we're going to talk about next is the behind the scenes, okay? Because there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and everybody's very focused on the scenes with the tariffs and regulations, the tariffs essentially, and the war scenarios. What's actually happening behind the scenes? For example, crypto and banking. New financial services emerge. The financial industry witnesses a transformative phase as cryptocurrencies and traditional banking sectors join forces, making essentially significant developments in financial services, as reported by Forbes. This shift is occurring globally as financial institutions are seeking innovative solutions to enter the market space. The collaboration between traditional banks and cryptocurrency platforms marks a major industry shift. Financial institutions are now exploring ways to incorporate digital assets into their services and portfolios, offering customers new opportunities. This alliance aims to essentially leverage blockchain technology as detailed essentially in a guide on innovation practices and intellectual property and IT sectors. The key players involved include major banks, technology firms, and cryptocurrency exchanges are actually all coming together behind the scenes. They are integrating digital services to stay competitive, driven by evolving market demands. This change signifies essentially the convenience of traditional and modern financial systems actually coming together to work together. The integration of crypto and banking reflects an era of transformative and technologies meeting traditional finance, fueling both innovation and disruption. A perspective coming from essentially financial analyst John Doe. Financial institutions anticipate increased essentially efficiency and enhanced customer experiences through this integration. However, regulatory essentially bodies express concerns over compliance and security. The collaboration is expected to drive technological advancements in financial services. Potential outcomes include enhanced transparency and reduced transaction costs. Historical trends suggest increased digital essentially asset adoption could follow. Experts essentially emphasize the need for a robust framework to address regulatory and security challenges in crypto banking integration, a topic that was explored back essentially from the publication on international relations and strategic insights from 2023. From 2023 onwards, they have been studying essentially the banking world and blockchain coming together. Since 2023, they've been studying that. Previously, the introduction of online banking disrupted traditional models similar to current crypto integrations. Both transitions highlight industry adoption to technological advancements, reshaping financial services, the emerging of digital and traditional banking models and essentially gaining momentum. Experts at essentially Canal Coin suggest increased competitiveness among banks adopting such digital assets. They predict accelerated innovation as institutions adopt to crypto-enabled transactions, reflecting a trend parallel to past technological disruptions in the financial sector. It's just what happens. Again, when I said to you essentially, JP Morgan, essentially Citi, Morgan Stanley, Wall Street, Bank of America are helping right now, they are helping blockchain companies go public. If it's a bad time inside the crypto space, if the market space is about to collapse, if everything is about to be doomed, then why are major institutional players like Wall Street, essentially Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Citi, JP Morgan, helping blockchain companies go public now? If it's such a doomed market space, if it's going to be, the crypto space is ruined because of Trump and so on. If it's such a bad time, why are they helping them? And what I mean by that is this. Circle, for example, which is USDC, taps into JP Morgan and Citi for their planned IPO. If it's a bad time, why is JP Morgan and Citibank helping Circle go public? They're a blockchain company. They're USDC, pretty much the second ranking stablecoin in the world. If it's a bad time for the crypto space, why are they helping them go public now? Stablecoin issuer Circle, essentially Internet Financial, is preparing for a long-anticipated public debut, enlisting Wall Street giants like JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup to guide this initial public offering, according to a Fortune report citing essentially sources familiar with the matter. The company reportedly plans to file for its IPO in late April. Though the timeline may change if the process proceeds smoothly, Circle's shares could begin trading within a month of its public filing. But that will ultimately deepen essentially the pace of its SEC registration and the broader market conditions. This is Circle's third attempt to go public. The first effort, essentially a merger announced back in 2021, fell apart amid regulatory delays. A second time, essentially, Circle decided to go public, more discreet move, came back in 2024 when Circle essentially filed and submitted a draft of their S1 to the SEC. Obviously, Gary Gensler didn't even bother looking at it. Circle's shares are being essentially traded in the secondary market on a case-by-case basis, mainly essentially involving early-stage investors and employees seeking to sell their holdings for liquidity. Circle has established a minimum valuation threshold of $5 billion for these transactions. Circle's valuation has reached $9 billion, essentially back in 2002, when it attempted to go public via the Special Purposes Acquisition Company SPEC deal, essentially with a concerned acquisition corp. However, the proposed merger was mutually terminated back in December 2022 due to the SEC essentially delayed approval and fallout from the FTX situation. Circle is best known for issuing USDC coin, which everybody's very familiar with $58 billion in circulation. USDC is the second largest stablecoin, far behind Tether's $142 billion. Obviously, as the stablecoin market grows, faster transactions could help Circle stay competitive. Under the current crypto-friendly presidential administration, firms like Kraken, Gemini, and BitGo are also essentially disclosed intentions to go public. Earlier this month, Circle launched an upgrade to its cross-chain transfer protocol, CCTP, that will cut settlement times from minutes to just seconds. The newly introduced CCTP version 2 improves on essentially its predecessor by using updated smart contracts and APIs, reducing the average time from essentially 13 to 19 minutes settlement times between Ethereum and layer 2 blockchains to near instant transactions to be happening on USDC. But again, if it's such a bad time for the market space, if the crypto space is about to collapse in some sort of way, go to a drastic, essentially downward tensions and so on, why are essentially JP Morgan and Citi helping Circle go public now? Wouldn't that be the worst time to date, to help a blockchain company go public when the crypto market space is doomed because of tariffs and essentially war scenarios? Because in a reality, essentially, because the reality of it is the crypto market space is not doomed in any sort of a way. Because yes, on the scene, there's tariffs happening, there's war scenarios happening. Behind the scenes, there's regulations happening, which nobody's paying attention to. Also, the next clientele that's entering the market space is institutional clientele, which is essentially shared by JP Morgan's analyst, Nicholas, which is also shared by Grayscale's analyst as well earlier in the year. Now, dire consequences is what we're going to be talking about next, which is Elon Musk is apparently going to have access to the SEC. Elon Musk has had access to multiple government agencies, as he should do, because he is cleaning up the government. Some people might not like the idea of Elon Musk cleaning up the government, but that's just how it is. I mean, he's the best man for it. He's intelligent enough and so on. So, Elon Musk essentially is now going to get access to the SEC files, is what he's aiming for next, which is the best. 100% the best thing that could have possibly happened, because maybe Elon Musk is the man that could reveal Operation Choke Point 2.0 from its headquarters of what Gary Gensler did maybe in the past. So here it is. The top Democratic on the US House Financial Services Committee issued a warning after reports suggested that Tesla's CEO Elon Musk's government efficiency team would be giving access to data and systems at the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Democrats are already, the Democratic politicians are already having a hissy fit of the idea that Elon Musk is about to go through the file cabinets of the SEC. Because we know for a fact a lot of dirty file, or he's most likely going to find a lot of dirty laundry, essentially you could say, in the SEC. The SEC has been a very shady department, especially towards the crypto space. They've been extremely shady under Gary Gensler's essentially authority. Obviously now the SEC is a lot more essentially, because of Mark, the acting chairman of the SEC, and because of Trump's administration, obviously the SEC is dropping cases back to back. They're a lot more pro-crypto than they've ever been before. But maybe this could, give us an opening of what happened. Why was Ripple, suddenly targeted by the SEC randomly, when there was so much corruption happening inside the crypto space? Meme coins were, coming out left, right, and center. People were getting their life savings lost inside the crypto space. And random tokens were being created. Random crypto projects were essentially, dumping on people. FTX, for example, that massive collapse and so on. So many dodgy behavior was happening inside the crypto space. But for some reason, Gary Gensler decided to put all of his focus on Ripple. All of it. So maybe Elon Musk could be the person to reveal why all of his focus was all of a sudden randomly towards Ripple. Now, February, essentially, in March 31st, notice Representative Maxine Waters retweeted a warning from a letter she sent to an acting SEC Mark chairman in February in response to Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency reported access to sensitive SEC information. DOGE is an advisory body to the US President Donald Trump rather than an official department established by Congress. According to a California lawmaker, giving Elon Musk such access would have dire consequences for US investors and present conflicts of interest, is what the Democratic politicians are saying. They're saying Elon Musk should not be given access to the SEC. As a result of this takeover, the agency is at a greater risk of data breaches and market disruptions, and both of which could result in investors, including retirees, losing their hard-earned savings, said Waters, adding that not only that Elon Musk, who has been the subject of repeated SEC enforcement actions for breaking securities laws and regulators, can benefit his own business and harm his competitors by using his access to confidential business information and his influence over the agency operations. Yeah, one thing you should know about Elon Musk, Democratic politicians, is that Elon Musk is not a Democratic politician. The only people that would use things to their benefit is Democratic politicians. Well, the only people that use things to their own benefit, not Elon Musk. And why is it that every department Elon Musk wants to look through inside the US government, the number one thing Democratic politicians always say or protest about, or the people that they pay to protest with them, is that Elon Musk is going to take away your retirement? Why is that the number one slogan? When Elon Musk wanted to look into essentially the educational department, they said Elon Musk is going to take away your retirement because he's essentially looking into the education department. When they said Elon Musk is looking into US aid, they came out again and said Elon Musk is going to take your retirement away because he's looking into US aid. Every US department Elon Musk has looked into and cut all the unnecessary costs. Every department is looked into. Why is it always the same slogan? Elon Musk is going to take your retirement if he looks into the SEC, if he looks into US aid, if he looks into essentially this department, that department. It could be because they're trying to put fear into people and they think that Elon Musk is going to take all of their money. But the reality of it is, the Democratic politicians already did that for the longest time. That's the reality of it. And the Democratic politicians don't want Elon Musk finding out about that. And that's the reality of it. Waters, the Democratic politician, warning followed multiple reports suggesting that Musk Doge team contacted the SEC and would be given access to the commission's system and data. Since joining the Trump administration as a special government employee, Musk has spearheaded efforts to fire staff at multiple government agencies, including the U.S. Agency of International Development, USAID, and Watchdog Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB. Many of Doge's essentially actions faced lawsuits in federal courts from parties alleging the group actions were illegal or unconstitutional, which is, again, a load of BS. A Democratic politician is just angry because Elon Musk is about to find out all their dirty tricks and how much money Democratic politicians have been stealing from the retail section. Even the same morons that essentially protest against Elon Musk, those morons especially that have been protesting against Elon Musk, the Democratic politicians are stealing money from the same morons that are protesting against Elon Musk, that are standing with the Democrats. Those Democrats were essentially for years stealing from the people that are protesting with them against Elon Musk. Imagine how much of a moron you have to be in that scenario. As one of the major US financial regulators, the SEC is responsible for oversights and regulations of many aspects of the cryptocurrency industry, including whether many tokens qualify as securities under essentially Mark and US President Donald Trump. The Commission has dropped several lawsuits alleging violations of securities laws against crypto firms since January, and that it's unclear whether Doge team intends to purge the SEC of employees Musk considers not loyal to Trump administration, as has been implied in some lawsuits involving firings at other governments and agencies. Cointelegraph essentially contacted acting chairman Mark and SEC Commissioner Caroline Crenshaw for a comment, but did not receive essentially a response at the time of publication. Doge's reported in essentially reportings of the SEC comes as the US Senate Banking Committee is expected to vote on whether to essentially advance the nomination of Paul Atkins, Trump's pick to chair the agency of the SEC. And essentially, at his March 2027 confirmation hearing, Paul Atkins had essentially a confirmation hearing in March 27th, and to essentially replace the acting chairman, essentially that is Mark. The confirmation hearing, Atkins said he will be willing to work with Doge if confirmed. Even Paul Atkins, essentially, that is going to become the actual SEC chairman, who's going to replace the acting chairman, who's Mark. He even said he's willing to let Doge fully scoop around inside the SEC, even when he becomes essentially the chairman of the SEC, no matter what. And Democratic lawmakers at the hearing questioned Atkins' potential conflicts of interest with the crypto industry. And, well, I mean, what more could you expect from Democratic politicians? They are absolutely the most moronic people on this planet and the most money-hungry people on this planet. And I don't know what it is, but Democratic politicians tell people what they're going to do to them as well. So when a Democratic politician, genuinely, when a Democratic politician stands up and says, for example, Elon Musk is stealing money from you, what that Democratic politician is actually saying is that I'm stealing money from you, morons. When a Democratic politician stands up and says Elon Musk is taking away your retirement funds, what they're actually trying to say is the Democratic politician is actually saying I'm taking away your retirement funds. Everything that they've pointed towards Elon Musk is everything they've actually done themselves to their own followers. And I don't know why, for the love of it, that Democratic, since the people that protest with them can't see through it. Genuinely, every single thing that a Democratic politician has accused Elon Musk of doing, stealing retirement funds, stealing people's wages, essentially pay cutting people, firing people randomly, accusing people randomly, is taking everything, every single thing they've pointed towards Elon Musk is actually all the things the Democrats have done to their own followings. And that's the funny part of it. So next time a Democratic politician stands up and says Elon Musk is doing this, what they're actually trying to say is they've already done this. Now, Hot 8 is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Trump family. We're going to talk about the essentially Bitcoin mining. But before we talk about that, let's go to the comment section first. Before we talk about that, let's go to the comment section first. As I said previously, if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go to the comment section first before we go through the next news. And I think we were on Shelly's question. Yes. As I said previously, I read everybody's questions one by one, or everyone's statement one by one. If you do have anything to say, put it down in the comment section. So we're at Shelly's question, and Shelly says, do you think we will continue to have more shakeouts in the coming months, or is this one the last one before we move upwards? Interesting question, Shelly. Yeah, we could have more shakeouts. More shakeouts are never off the books whatsoever. But what I would say to everyone is, keep your eyes on what essentially is happening behind the scenes rather than what's happening on the scenes. On the scenes, as I said, tariffs and war scenarios, whereas behind the scenes is actually regulations, a foundation being built, and lawsuits are being dropped. And institutions are helping blockchain companies go public. This is what's happening behind the scenes. So on the topic of, is this the last shakeout? It might not be the last shakeout, but how you can divert attention for yourself, for everyone in general, for the crypto space, is just focus on essentially what's happening behind the scenes. So this could be a big shakeout, without a doubt. This could be a big shakeout, but the possibility of having more shakeouts or more turbulence inside the market space It's something to always consider inside the market space. In any market space, turbulence and so on is always something to consider. But this could be a big shakeout inside the market space, because this big shakeout of what's happening behind the scenes in terms of regulations and lawsuits being dropped and so on, all these government departments coming together, is actually what's happening behind the scenes. So this could be one of the biggest shakeouts, one of the biggest distractions, essentially, as I would say. But great question, Shelly, because a lot of people might be wondering, is this the last shakeout? Is this the big shakeout? Is there more shakeouts? This is a big shakeout, no doubt about it. This is going to be a big shakeout, no doubt about it. But more turbulence could be on the way, because it's something that you will always have to consider in terms of market spaces. Turbulence will always be there, manipulation will always be there. But this is going to be a big shakeout, is what's happening. I hope it is really carefully calculated. Oh, that's not towards me. Spot on, Miles. Let's go in. It's very dangerous because it was disruptive productions and consumption lines. This makes economic paralysis one of the causes of major wars. And we saw this very clearly in World War II. Good evening, Miles. The CMF free and very good to see you. How you doing? The most important question is: has the US gold stock been essentially intervened or accounted for? Not yet. Have they essentially accounted for their Fort Knox vaults? Okay, in terms of the US gold, in terms of essentially Fort Knox, in terms of the vault, does the US have the gold it does? Essentially, does the US have the gold it says it does? And has it been counted, and so on? What I can say is the most simplest way to say it. If the US doesn't have any gold, for example, let's just presume the US doesn't have the gold it says it does, they're not going to show it to anybody on live news. Just want to put it out there for people. I know they said they're going to go inside Fort Knox with a live camera and so on and show to the whole world that they have the amount they say they have on paper. But if it was empty-ish or empty in general, they're not going to show it to the public or to the world at all. Because if they did, it will collapse the world economy like that. Because as the International Monetary Fund puts it, if the American markets sneeze, the world market catches a cold. And if there's a live broadcast of an empty vault, then the entire world economy will just collapse within 5 seconds. Because everybody relies on the markets, on America's markets. So if it was empty, they would never show it on live TV. Never. So it has gold. If they're going to show it, it has gold. And also factor in the part where essentially that's the amount of gold America has taken from essentially Egypt, or from Misr essentially they've taken, or from Yemen they've taken, or from Iraq they've taken. There's so much gold that America has taken essentially from other war scenarios. So the amount of gold they have is tremendous, to be fairly honest. They have a tremendous amount of gold. They're actually storing other countries' gold as well in their vaults. But if it had no gold, or some gold, they're not going to broadcast it on live TV. Trump is not going to broadcast it on live TV. Elon's not going to broadcast it on live TV. Nobody's going to broadcast that on live TV. Nobody. Because that would collapse the world's economy within 5 seconds. It's just very simply put. International Monetary Fund, exact words. Bank of International Settlements, exact words also. If the American markets sneeze, the world market catches a cold. If that place is empty, nobody's going to get to see inside of it. So that place has gold for it to ever be on live TV. Always remember that. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you all free and ever. How you been? The Muslim, so regarding that question, Mohammed, now you know, and everybody else knows as well. You seem too knowledgeable. Thank you so much for the kind words. Do you have a PhD? No, I don't have a PhD, but I have studied business law as well. Let's go Doge. Let's go Ray. Because they are scared, Miles. Facts. They are. Cuba is waiting for them all. Facts. Good day, Miles and CMF. Mike, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Maxine Waters is a waste of oxygen. I 100% approve of that message. Hi, Nevertheless. How you doing? Angry people are patient and not afraid until it becomes clear where the world is heading. Peace or absolute chaos. There are lines that when crossed, there is no return for them. Patience. I agree. patience, definitely. They are satanic and only fools can't see that. Facts. Regarding those politicians, 100% yes. Facts. They really need to reevaluate things, especially the issue of US taxes and customs and harm without benefits so far to the US economy. Yep, they do. You know, every country, in my opinion, needs to reevaluate a lot of things within the government, 100%. Hi, Miles and family. Golden Dragon, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Sorry for the late arrival. No problem, Paul. Good to see you, brother. How you been? When do you believe we will see big upwards movements with XRP? Is there going to be a bull run or not? Yes, there is going to be a run without a doubt. It's going to be an institutional run because that's the next clientele into the market space. And those are the exact words from JP Morgan analyst Nicholas, or essentially a perspective from Grayscale's analyst as well, and a few other perspectives as well to be out there from Morgan Stanley, Standard Chartered Bank. Now, the next clientele is institutional clientele, and with all the regulations that's happening behind the scenes, it does really add up. So yes, we are going to still have that run, and it's going to be an incredible year this year. So then there would be one hell of a gold rush towards the digital crypto market space. Wow. Well, people are going to be pulling out their well, not really. I'll be honest. If essentially they go in with cameras, which they're never going to do. If they go in with cameras and there's some gold or not any, not the gold doesn't add up, then obviously the world economy will collapse within seconds, which means the crypto market will also collapse within seconds. The crypto market will actually be hit the worst out of the stock market, because the stock market, essentially, Bitcoin follows the Nasdaq, and due to not having regulations still for the market space for crypto assets to decouple, Bitcoin follows the Nasdaq. Nasdaq will go down, Bitcoin will get hit even more, and then the crypto market will just collapse with it. So, everybody should really understand. Everybody should really understand how politics works, how essentially showmanship works, because everybody thought they're going to come out and there's going to be no gold inside of that vault and so on. If there was never going to be any gold in that vault, nobody was going to be seeing that gold. Nobody's going to be seeing that vault, because that would collapse the US economy, which would collapse essentially the world economy. So always remember that. Okay, I know they made it a big show and they said, is there any gold? We're going to reevaluate the gold. We're going to count the gold. Is there even any gold in there? And so on, exaggerating all over the news and so on. The reality of it is, if there is no gold in there, they're not going to show it to anybody. Trump is not going to show it. Elon Musk is not going to show it. Nobody's going to show it to the world, because that would collapse the US economy, which would collapse the world's economy. So they were never going to show it to the world if there's no gold, which means there's gold inside of it. And also the amount of gold America has taken from other war countries as well. So it has a tremendous amount of gold. But it was, it was a time period where they kept everybody busy on that whole Fort Knox thing. They kept everyone busy regarding Fort Knox. Everybody was discussing. Some people were saying there's no gold, and some people were saying the US dollars is going to zero, crypto is going to the moon, and so on. There were so many perspectives of that time period regarding Fort Knox and so on. They kept everybody busy, and that was the main goal, to keep everybody busy. But the chances of them revealing it with no gold was never going to happen. There was gold in there. But they kept everyone busy, though. Happy Pisces, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Respectfully, I don't think people realize how many layers of companies are required for their special, unique solutions and services offerings it takes to make essentially $100 million move from one country to another in 5 seconds, layers upon layers. It's not just XRP all by itself, and they all have to come to the table and have it all connected. Facts, absolutely facts. What Happy Pisces has said. The flip of the switch is actually the flip of many switches at the exact same time. Fail-proof testing. Facts also. Yeah, like that one, people. Yep, look, there's no there. Yep. Hi from Malaysia. Shakira, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Now, Trump family, they have made a new investment. Trump family have made a new investment, and it is towards Bitcoin mining. So here it is. Hut 8 merges with American data centers to form a new entity. Hut 8 Corp and American Data Centers announced a strict merger today to form the American Bitcoin, marking a significant shift in North American Bitcoin mining sector. Hut 8 Corp has merged with American Data Centers to establish American Bitcoin. The merger will see essentially a control split. Hut 8 holds 80% and American Data Center retains 20%. Eric Trump, takes a pivotal role as the Chief Strategy Officer. The new entity aims to leverage Hut 8's data centers and expertise and the Trump family's business essentially acumen. Leadership essentially appointees, including Mike Ho as the executive essentially chairman, and essentially Matt as the CEO, signaling strategic alignments for growth. As Eric Trump, co-founder of American Bitcoin, commented, it is a great honor to partner with Hut 8, a recognized leader inside the Bitcoin space, as we launch American Bitcoin. Trump's son, essentially Trump's family member, Trump's son and so on, is launching American Bitcoin, a company that's going to become a Bitcoin mining data center. By combining Hut 8's proven operational excellence and data centers with our shared passion for Bitcoin and decentralized finance, we are poised to strengthen our foundation and drive significant future growth. The announcement triggered a 4% rise in Hut 8's share price, reflecting market optimism. Investors have shown increased interest, likely due to Trump's family involvement, which suggests for potential enhancing operation efficiencies. This move enhances Hut 8's strategic position, consolidating operations while potentially reshaping competition. Such mergers signify shifts in capital access and resource allocations in North American market spaces, as highlighted in an article essentially detailing a year of transformation for Hut 8 Corp. Predicted essentially advantages include better utilization of capital and enhanced operation capabilities, particularly with decentralized finance in mind. Anticipated outcomes also including stronger competitive positioning and increased investor interest. Hut 8 continuously leverages its Bitcoin essentially reserves to generate returns guided by historical success, as noted by essentially Asher Genut, CEO of Hut 8. The launch of American Bitcoin marks a pivotal evolution in our platform strategy by carving out our mining business into a standalone entity, which will raise its own capital, will align each segment of the business with its respective cost of capital. The newly formed essentially entity plans to focus on improved strategies for Bitcoin mining efficiency and essentially innovation within a robust regulatory framework. Further details are available essentially also on the USBTC project union merger deck presentation. So Trump's family has just now got involved in Bitcoin mining. So Trump's family does have that obviously World Liberty Financial project. Now they also have a Bitcoin mining center. Well, Trump's son essentially does. Now, moving on off that too, and again, this is what's happening behind the scenes. A lot of foundation essentially is being built. Now, also a bit more on the whole behind the scenes situation. California is taking a positive Bitcoin step. California, which is known very, to be a liberal place essentially, aims to support Bitcoin holders now. Also, California, ironically, being where all the random cases came out of, where there were people suing Ripple's CEO, ironically, when the SEC was going head to head with them, or the randomly people that came out of California that was suing Coinbase that came out of nowhere when the SEC decided to sue essentially Coinbase as well, and so on. And California, to go from that to now this, basically, the California State Assembly has formally introduced the AB 1052, a bill that aims to clarify self-custody rights for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The legislation also aims to prevent public institutions from imposing payment restrictions and prohibits public officials from issuing, sponsoring, or promoting any digital assets, security, or commodity. The bill, called Bitcoin Rights, was introduced by essentially Assemblyman June, who chairs the Banking and Financing Committee. The bill's introduction to the public was confirmed in a statement by a non-profit advocacy group, Satoshi Action Fund, on social media platform X. We are proud to officially announce the introduction of Bitcoin Rights by the chairman of the Banking and Financing in California Assembly, said Assemblyman. When passed, the legislation will protect the right to self-storage for nearly 40 million Americans. AB 1052 outlines several key provisions designed to strengthen protections for digital asset users, including explicitly affirming the right to self-custody Bitcoin and other digital assets. One notable aspect of the legislation is the inclusion of the framework for managing unclaimed digital assets. Under the bill's guidelines, such assets will be handled by licensed custodians rather than the left in administration limbo. Another essentially important aspect of the AB 1052 is its amendment to the Political Reform Act of the 1974, and the proposed amendment will prevent public officials from issuing, supporting, or essentially benefiting from digital assets or securities in general. Obviously, for money laundering purposes, for politicians not to be paid off in crypto assets. But let's just be honest with ourselves. They have the exact same rules for fiat. And we know for a fact politicians get paid off using dollars, pounds, euros, yen, rubes, any currency out there. Politicians are the number one people to accept any under the table deals. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But they did put a law so that politicians can't accept crypto bribes. Yeah, let's see how that one lasts. Now, moving off, essentially, regarding what's happening behind the scenes compared to what's happening on the scenes, to Coinbase. Coinbase has decided to file and revive one of their lawsuits. And the file and essentially the case they've chosen to revive is regarding the FDIC. In terms of over crypto transparency. So out of nowhere, Coinbase decided to just revive one of their cases against the FDIC regarding crypto transparency. And they want to find out certain things regarding Operation Chokepoint 2.0. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why is Coinbase, that their case has been dropped by the SEC, the FDIC is not looking into them, the CFTC is not looking into them. Why would Coinbase just bother randomly to, go after the FDIC and revive one of their cases when there's no pending cases against them anymore? Why would they do that? Why would they spend time, money, and resources to do that? It could be to put more pressure on the FDIC to move faster. Because obviously the FDIC is definitely withholding information from all the dodgy behavior they did in the past. And obviously now they're pro-crypto, trying to help banks go public. But this could be a pressuring tactic by the Coinbase, essentially, to make the FDIC stand by their words, remaining pro-crypto, and move faster by reviving one of their cases randomly. So here it is. Coinbase has filed a motion in DC District Court to resume its Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. The exchange alleges that the FDIC continues to withhold crucial documents that is not fully cooperating with its essentially information request. This legal action seeks to obtain records related to the FDIC's communications with the banks regarding cryptocurrency activities, particularly concerning the so-called pause letters. They instructed banks to halt crypto-related services because the FDIC did send 20 emails to banks in America, 20 emails to tell them not to utilize crypto assets in any sort of a way. Also, they told them not to work with crypto companies and not to accept crypto clients in any sort of a way. And then the FDIC apparently decided to threaten its own employees if they decided to snitch about what's happening inside the FDIC to any US government body. So a lot of dodgy behavior did happen inside the FDIC. But Coinbase could be reviving this case out of nowhere to put more pressure on the FDIC to move quicker or reveal your information of what you hold from the past of your dodgy behavior, which I'm guessing the FDIC doesn't want to reveal, which means it puts pressure on the FDIC to move quicker. It's a good tactic. The lawsuit was initially paused in February 2025 following President Trump's appointee of Travis Hill as the acting FDIC chairman. And Hill pledged to enhance the agency's transparency beyond the FOIA requirements, raising hopes that the matter could be resolved outside the court. As you can see, Coinbase dropped the case going after the FDIC when Trump became president because they didn't see the point anymore. Everyone's pro-crypto now. But all of a sudden, Coinbase decided to revive this case, even though the FDIC is pro-crypto. And it's only because they want to put pressure on the FDIC to move quicker. Or they have to reveal their information from the past, which they're not going to, which means they have to move quicker. The lawsuit was initially, as I said, paused in February. Now, Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul, told Eleanor Terrett that there is an ongoing dissatisfaction with the FDIC's transparency. He acknowledged that the corporation has improved under the new leadership, but it feels like it's not sufficient enough. And the FDIC is expected to respond to Coinbase's motion within 2 weeks. The FDIC recently announced that banks are no longer required to obtain or prior approval to engage in legally permitted cryptocurrency activities, provided that they effectively manage their associated risk, which is true, that banks are no longer obligated to contact the FDIC or CFPB or OCC. They can actually, get involved inside the crypto space. The policy, as long as they maintain their risk. This policy reversal marks a significant shift from the previous administration's more cautious stance on crypto-related banking services, and Coinbase's legal actions as a part of a broader effort to uncover evidence of Operation Choke Point 2.0, an alleged, essentially coordinated attempt by financial regulators to restrict crypto industry access to the banking services, and documents obtained through essentially previous FOIO requests suggest essentially that the FDIC issued letters related to activities which essentially Coinbase views as a part of concentrated efforts to stifle cryptocurrency innovation. So Coinbase essentially is putting pressure on the FDIC. The FDIC has said they're pro-crypto. Obviously, they have a new, acting chairman, which Trump chose. They are pro-crypto, the FDIC. They have let go of their restrictive ways when it comes to the banking space and crypto and so on. But Coinbase reviving this case, it only comes to one conclusion in my head, which is this is a tactic, essentially, you would use to put pressure on certain people, governments, bodies, companies, entities, and so on, to do what you want them to do, which is stand by the word and move faster. Now, Bitcoin is what we're going to talk about next. Bitcoin could reduce dominance of the US dollar. It's a perspective coming out of BlackRock. But before we talk about BlackRock news, let's go to the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go to the comment section first, and then we'll go straight to the next news, which is regarding BlackRock news. So let's see where we were at. We were at here. Because of Trump's, so Mohammed says because of Trump's statements, the ounce is now fluctuating between $3,120 and $3,100, and this is raising the questions of whether it will raise further and higher than that, and this weakens all other. Well, here's what I can say, Mohammed. Because of the war scenarios that's happening, gold is actually doing pretty well for itself, because gold is an actual safe haven and an actual risk-off asset. And in times of market uncertainty, economic uncertainty, or in general war uncertainty, gold does pretty well. So for itself, gold is doing quite well for itself. Gold will always be high, but who are you going to sell it to? Which is a great question. Unless it becomes tokenized, then you can sell it to anybody you want if it becomes tokenized, which it will do. Gold will definitely become tokenized. Every commodity, every asset on this planet will become tokenized. Everything you own one day will become tokenized. So at that moment in time, then probably is when the selling time comes. But for the time being, obviously being focused more inside the crypto space is more beneficial than being focused on gold. But the gold for itself is doing pretty well because it's an actual safe haven, an actual risk-off asset, unlike certain assets that sometimes pretend to be risk-off assets or safe havens. Now, I always learn from everyone and listen to everyone's opinion. That's good. Before making a decision. That's good. Until now, I have not made any decision regarding selling gold. There are opinions about large numbers of gold. Gold is stability for times of trouble. Facts, 100%. Agreed. Most importantly, what are your opinions about Warren Buffett and that he has liquidated a large amount of his investments and is still holding on to them? Which is true. So the last time Warren Buffett essentially sold and liquidated quite a lot of his assets was about 2 years before the 2008 scenario. So before we had that massive 2008 essentially market crash, before we had the 2008 market crash, Warren Buffett liquidated quite a lot of his assets into cash 2 years before 2008. It's almost like Warren Buffett saw the 2008 market crash happening and liquidated all these assets 2 years before, or 4 years beforehand, essentially. It was 2 years or 4 years he liquidated. And then we had the 2008 market crash. And then obviously, Warren Buffett did tremendously well for themselves over time. Now, he's done that again. Warren Buffett has liquidated a portion of his assets. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 100. He sold tremendous amount of shares, ridiculous amount of shares he sold, 150 million or something on those lines, 200 million even on those lines. He sold essentially, and there is that idea that is Warren Buffett planning for another 2008 crash? Is that why he's liquidated a portion of his assets into essentially fiat? Is he getting ready to purchase when the market drops? Look, what I can say is that just because the man was correct once doesn't mean he's going to be correct twice. But it's an outcome to consider. That's cash, yeah. Playing for time, yes. On the fence. Explain more, please. That's how. Cash is liquid, yes. Waiting for world events to play out. Exactly. He's waiting for world events to play out. He could be wrong, but he didn't liquidate. So the last time Warren Buffett liquidated his assets before the 2008 crash, he liquidated a tremendous amount. This time, he's only liquidated a small portion of his assets compared to what he liquidated in the past for the 2008 crash. He's only liquidated a certain amount of his assets now, not the same amount as he did beforehand. So he's not expecting a big crash, let's just say, because if he was, he would be liquidated a lot more. Now, Bitcoin is what we're talking about next, and essentially BlackRock. Well, Bitcoin could reduce dominance of US dollars. Is a perspective coming out of BlackRock right now. And here it is. The US dollars could lose its status as the world's reserve currency to Bitcoin or other digital assets if the United States does not get its debt under control, according to essentially BlackRock CEO Larry Fink. And obviously, with Elon Musk in control of the Doge efficiency department and so on, he is trying to control the US debt. Believe it or not, Elon Musk is the only man with his team that's going to control the US debt over time, not overnight. But Larry Fink has came up with a new perspective that if they don't control it, then the US dollar's dominance could be, taken by another asset. Now, Larry Fink wrote in his annual chairman letter to investors that decentralized finance is an essentially extraordinary innovation that makes markets faster, cheaper, and more transparent. But that's the same innovation that could undermine America's economic advantages if investors began to see Bitcoin as a safer bet than the US dollars. According to Trading Economics, the US debt essentially equaled to around 122.3% of the country's gross domestic products back in 2023. And that is a considerably higher percentage than the 105% observed in 2018. Moody's Ratings essentially retains the US's AAA credit rating, but has downgraded its outlook to negative, indicating a possible future rating downgrade, and that the US's Joint Economics Committee wrote that as of March 5th, the country's gross national debt was $36.2 trillion, growing essentially $1.8 trillion or roughly $4.9 billion per day over the past year, and the $12.8 trillion in the past 5 years. The Baptism Policy Center warned that this month that the US could essentially default on its debt as early as July 2025. Now, here's the thing. It's not going to, I don't think essentially the US is going to default on its debt. Sorry about that. The reason why I don't think Trump is going to, essentially, the reason why I don't think the US is going to default on its debt is because of what Trump and Elon Musk are achieving. On one side, Trump is handing out essentially gold passports for $5 million, which they sold like hot pancakes. And that money is going to be used so America doesn't default on its debts. Also, at the same time, you have Elon Musk from the other side cutting people out from the government, that they essentially just taking money for no apparent reason, producing no work. So with Elon Musk closing down useless departments, getting rid of essentially all the unnecessary spendings, Elon Musk from one side is cutting all the unnecessary spendings, and on the other side, Trump is selling 5 million gold cards for America. So from both perspectives, they're trying to not make the US default. And this is why I said that essentially America was standing on its last leg because of Biden's administration of circus freaks, genuine circus freaks. America was standing on its last leg. And if we went and had a Kamala presidency, America would have no legs to stand on and it would collapse. And China would scoop up its place within seconds, because that's the only thing China wants, to scoop up and become number one. That's why BRICS was a big thing for them, which fell apart, by the way. Russia decided to say they're not creating a BRICS token because they don't want to, essentially go against the 100% tariff that's going to be produced on them, even though there are sanctions already on them. China is not really going forward with a essentially currency either. Neither is Brazil, neither is South Africa, neither is India. None of them are creating a BRICS currency anymore. They said we're not creating an alternative currency to US dollars because now we have a strong, President Trump and so on. But the matters on that essentially factor of the deficit, the default situation of America, That's what Trump is trying to do. So when Trump came out with the news that he's selling gold cards for $5 million, people said, people that hated Trump said, why is he selling 5 million gold cards? I thought he hated immigrants. I thought essentially, Trump hated immigrants. Look at him, he's being a hypocrite and so on. And the people that said this are absolute morons. Because again, some people just don't understand how the world operates. They don't understand what politics are. They don't understand economics. They don't understand basics of anything. And they criticized Trump for selling $5 million gold cards and so on. They said, we thought Trump was, he hated immigration. Now he's letting people inside the country and so on. And that's what the haters said towards Trump. But those morons didn't realize that Trump is only doing this to save America from collapsing, because the previous administration did an absolute colossal job on the economy that there was no point of return. And that Trump is trying to build America back to 4 standing legs rather than the 1 standing leg it already has right now. So that's why Trump decided to sell 5 million gold cards from one side, and then Elon Musk from the other side is just cutting down departments no matter what, because those departments were genuinely wasting taxpayers' money, genuinely wasting the US's money. So by cutting from one side and selling gold cards from the other side, it could prevent America from defaulting essentially on its debt by July, as early as July, essentially. Now, Bitcoin, so that's why they're selling gold cards. And that's why essentially Elon Musk on the other side is just cutting departments out, unnecessary departments out straight away, no questions asked. Bitcoin essentially has been branded, and this is why I say that Democratic politicians, to me, they almost seem like traitors to the American people and to the America in general. This is why I said the liberals, the liberal politicians and the Democratic politicians, let's just be honest with ourselves, the liberal politicians are not all there. The Democratic politicians, to me, they seemed almost like traitors to America, to American citizens, to their own flag, to their own country. And it almost seemed to me like the Democratic politicians would rather stand with China and see China, for example, take the lead as #1, and become the #1 country, having the loudest voice and the loudest vote and so on, than the US continuing down that line, for example. So that's why the Democratic politicians, to me, they almost seem like traitors to their own country. It's like they were almost being paid off by Chinese politicians, which, by the way, has happened in the past. Not just towards American politicians, but there has been essentially British politicians that were being paid by Chinese, essentially, government. There was European politicians that were being paid off by the Chinese government as well. There's been American politicians. There's been American politicians that were being paid off by the Iranian government. Just let that one sink in. So that's why, to me, it almost seemed like the Democratic politicians wanted America to collapse, wanted the American people to suffer. And it did show signs of that. When there was a massive, essentially, hurricane situations or flooding situations in America, the American Democrats at the time that were in control with Sleepy Joe and Biden's administration gave $125 or $175 to American citizens who lost their homes in a flood as a loan for each family. And they were giving millions and billions of dollars to other people outside of America. So it almost did seem like, for the longest time, that are these American Democrats being paid off by other other essentially government bodies around the world? Because they couldn't care less about America. They couldn't care less about its people. They couldn't care less about its flag. They couldn't care less about its culture or its standing or its foundation. That's why it almost seemed like the Democratic politicians they seemed like traitors to me. But that was just my perspective, and it's just how I saw things happening that over there, essentially in the US, because things just didn't add up. The numbers just didn't add up. Bitcoin has been branded essentially as a safe haven for investors who are looking to avoid essentially the perils of fiat currencies, including inflation. So going back to this, some believe that the end. So regarding that's I wanted to share that regarding the debt situation. Bitcoin has been essentially, so in my point of view, Trump and Elon Musk are doing the best they can to build America up again and pay that debt off before it defaults. Bitcoin has been branded as a safe haven for its investors who are looking to avoid essentially the perils of fiat currencies, including inflation. Some believe that the end of the debt ceiling suspension could lead to Bitcoin price boom. Others think essentially, as Larry Fink has essentially stated, that the dangers of the national debt could increase Bitcoin's adoption. In 2025, cryptocurrencies has signed a prominence essentially as an asset class due to adoption by countries such as the US and companies like Strategy. However, some argue that stablecoins could also, in fact, increase the dominance of the US dollar, which is true. Stablecoins can essentially increase the US dollar as well. By the way, a lot of people assume the US dollar is going to go to zero. It isn't. Technically, it's just going to be a back end for actual stablecoins in the market space. So, for example, Tether USDT or Circle USDC or Ripple RLUSD or any other stablecoin out there, they actually buy fiat. They buy fiat US dollars, they buy US bonds, US treasuries, which in fact strengthens the US dollar fiat currency. So just a heads up for everyone, inside the crypto space that have that part a little bit confused. The US dollars actually gets strengthened every time Circle, Tether, or Ripple buy US bonds, for example. The US dollars gets strengthened. They buy US bonds to back their US, essentially their US alternative stablecoins on the market space. In the letter, Larry Fink says that tokenization is with the technological innovations enabling instant buying, selling, and transferring essentially without the cumbersome of paperwork or waiting periods. Larry Fink has shown definitely signs of how much he loves the idea of tokenization. In every asset that ends up being tokenized, Larry Fink said it will revolutionize investing when it comes to essentially tokenization. Markets wouldn't need to close. Transactions that currently take days would clear in seconds, and billions of dollars currently immobilized by settlement delays could be reinvested immediately back into the economy, essentially generating more wealth. That's also a positive state, essentially, for the market space. Again, this is all happening behind the scenes. Tokenization essentially acts as shareholder votings and yield, Larry Fink wrote. According to real-world assets.xyz, the tokenized real-world asset market space amounts to about now $19.6 billion. There are currently around 93,000 asset holders, and with 174 issuers, industry projections indicate that the market could reach $4 trillion to $30 trillion by 2030. BlackRock's own Build Real-World Tokenized Asset Fund is currently the largest as such fund available for trading, essentially, with Tether's Gold and Franklin Templeton's Benji funds coming in second and third place, respectively, essentially. But yeah, that's essentially the message that's coming out of BlackRock, essentially, that the US dollars, it could be over-dominated by Bitcoin and other crypto assets, but at the same time, stablecoins surviving, stablecoins staying around and pretty much forever, because now there's acts coming in, there's bills coming in to protect stablecoins, the Genius Act, the stablecoin bill, so on. And tokens like essentially RLUSD, Ripple, Circle USDC, Tether USDT, all these major essentially companies are actually buying treasuries. They're actually buying US bonds, which strengthens the US dollars, which strengthens the fiat US dollars. And everybody could go check this out on Tether's own website, on Circle's own website, on Ripple's own website, of actually what backs their RLUSD, what backs USDT, what backs USDC, and so on. You can see what backs these stablecoins is US bonds and some other essentially things as well. But every time these essentially establishments buy US bonds, it strengthens the US dollars. So the ideology of the idea that people thought the US dollars is going to go away, it isn't. It's going to go digital over time, but it's actually going to strengthen more and more when US dollar stablecoins are being created. Now, CFTC is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about essentially CFTC, because some interesting news just came out regarding CFTC, and again, this is behind the scenes scenarios, not scenarios, but behind the scenes of what's actually happening. Before we talk about the CFTC, let's start the conversation first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down to the comment section. More than happy to answer the questions you may have. So let's start the conversation first. So what's going on? We were here. Thank you for the clarification, my friend. I always wish you health and wealth. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for the kind words. Wish you the same thing as well, brother. Larry Fink is very afraid. Musk is shedding the... yeah, he is. Without a doubt. Musk is definitely shedding. Remember the railroad, the track, the train, and people miles? Yes, facts. Absolutely facts. And that big project, essentially, is what you're referring to, I'm guessing, regarding California. California was supposed to build that massive train project, which came to up to $20 billion. And then it's never going to be built, because what was happening was Democratic politicians were just filling their pockets with taxpayer money. Every time someone put money inside that budget for that train to be built, that train was never going to be built. But obviously there are still people out there who would, go and protest with Democratic politicians and say Elon Musk and Trump are bad men, and they're bad people, and they're ruining America, they're stealing their taxpaying money, they're stealing their essential retirement funds and so on. And obviously some of those protesters are being paid. Always remember that. In any political protesting, there's always some protesters being paid, and there are also some protesters that are there to maintain the crowds. so they don't get too rowdy or so on. And there's a lot of factors when it comes to protesting. It's not just get up and protest. It doesn't happen like randomly. There's a method to protesting essentially which has been used for many years, which is the people that are being paid, the people that are being paid to chant words, the people that are being paid to organize it, the people that are being paid to maintain so it doesn't go too rowdy sometimes. There's a lot of things when it comes to protesting. It's just randomly people picking up pick cards and going protesting. Obviously you do find morons sometimes on the side of the road just protesting for no apparent reason, but they're just morons and and so on. But the other medium-sized crowds and so on are actually organized situations where people are being paid to chant and people are being paid to maintain the crowd. And people are being paid to tell the actual people they're protesting, the morons that are protesting there, to not talk to news channels. Now, CFTC. CFTC withdraws advisories citing crypto market maturity. The U.S. Commodities Futures Trading Commission has essentially recited two key crypto advisories, which were essentially initially introduced to regulate the growing cryptocurrency market space. So as you can see, once again, there was a lot of things happening behind the scene. And one of them, adding on top of everything I've said today, another one is essentially the CFTC, which is withdrawing its advisories and citing for crypto market maturity. They're seeing the crypto market space maturing. The CFTC wants to be a part of that in a positive way. The U.S. Commodities Futures Trading Commission has essentially said two key crypto advisories, which were initially introduced to regulate the growing cryptocurrency market space. The withdrawal is a reflective of the market's development and increasing technological complexities. The actions involve important regulatory figures and reflects an official stance towards more equitable treatments of the crypto market space, and it marks a shift in the Commission's approach to crypto oversights as market dynamics evolve rapidly. Industry experts perceive this move as essentially indication of regulatory adaptability, aligning practices with market evolution. The decision could also prompt other regulatory bodies to reevaluate their own crypto market guidelines, impacting future essentially policy adjustments, and the withdrawals indicates potential financial and technological shifts within the crypto sector. Historical data suggests that this could lead to increased investor confidence as regulations may foster a more robust trading environment. As you can see, this is what's happening behind the scenes, while on the scenes is tariffs and war scenarios, or behind the scenes is regulations, CFTC, pro-crypto, SEC, pro-crypto, all these government bodies, pro-crypto, coming together, bring the regulations, lay the foundation, blockchain coming in, regulations, utility, is what actually was happening behind the scenes. Similar adjustments have occurred in the past where regulatory frameworks were adopted following essentially significant market evolutions. Previously, regulatory bodies have responded to market maturity by reconstructing their guidelines to better essentially suit contemporary essentially trading environments. Experts from Countercoin predict that this change could enhance market resilience, drawing more from their historical trends where mature markets experience a substantial amount of growth trajectory encouraged by exclusive and regulatory frameworks. Caroline D. Pam, acting chairman of the CFTC, said, given additional staff experience in the inverting years, as well as increasing market growth and maturity for the crypto space, DMO and DCR believe the virtual currency listing advisory is no longer needed. The CFTC came to the conclusion that they don't need to have a department for the crypto space to go after them anymore. They came to the conclusion that the crypto space is maturing and that we don't need to have a department to go around suing crypto projects. That is an extremely bullish sign. Now, what we're going to be talking about next is a perspective that's coming up from essentially Prometheum's CEO. Which is an interesting one. Which is, contrary to popular belief, regulation isn't slowing tokenization. There's a perspective that's coming up from Prometheum. So here it is, their CEO. The market for tokenized real-world assets is growing by the day, but contrary to belief, the biggest hurdle to broader adoption isn't regulation, but a lack of dedicated secondary markets for buying and selling tokenized securities, according to Prometheum's founder and co-CEO, Aaron. Now, I just want to put it out there that Prometheum has some links to the previous SEC. They were the only ones actually green-lighted as a platform. In an interview with Cointelegraph, the CEO drew attention to ARK Invest CEO Cathie Wood's recent appearance at a digital asset summit in New York, where she essentially said that the lack of regulatory clarity is preventing her company from tokenizing its funds. Contrary to popular belief, however, the hurdle isn't ambiguous regulations, said Kaplan, who noted that the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission SEC Special Purpose Broker Deal Framework and Alternative Trading Systems ATS licensing already provide a regulated pathway for issuing blockchain-native funds that offer efficiency advantages over traditional issuance. Absolute load of BS. You know why? Because Cathie Woods was speaking absolute facts. Cathie Woods said that regulations are not in place, which means we can't advance forward. Profimium CEO is coming out and saying, no, Cathie Woods was wrong. We can move forward. And that the SEC has so far, from Gary Gensler's essentially administration, has done a great job for the crypto space, is what they're saying. And they're saying that, the regulations we had essentially from Mr. Gary Gensler were amazing for the crypto space, and they've worked out so well for us. The only reason Profimium is very, very positive towards the previous administration and essentially positive towards Gary Gensler is because they have former SEC employees working inside the company. They were the only company approved, fully green-lighted by Gary Gensler as essentially a blockchain company, the only company green-lighted, full flying green lights, flying colors, and also former SEC. The amount of former SEC employees working in this company just raises so many questions. The real bottleneck lies, so while Gary Gensler was suing essentially blockchain companies at that moment in time, at the same time, Profimium had a green light, and many SEC employees decided to start working on Profimium. And it was the only company green-lighted, blockchain company that was green-lighted. While Gary Gensler was suing the blockchain companies, on the side, he approved Profimium, a blockchain company with the tremendous amount of SEC employees working inside of it. But anyways, excluding essentially stablecoins, the value of tokenized real-world assets has increased by nearly 8% to $19.5 billion over the past 30 days, according essentially to industry data. Private credit and US Treasury debt essentially remains the two largest use cases. These assets currently sit on a handful of essentially blockchains, but there is still no fully public secondary markets where institutional and retail investors can buy, sell, and trade them, as they do with traditional securities on Nasdaq through a brokerage account like Fidelity, for example, and who identified two general approaches for building out those platforms. Yes, the reason why you can't buy, sell, and trade them is not because there is no platforms, it's because if anybody creates a platform, it's going to go into gray areas. So it goes back to regulations. The first is building a tokenized security market using decentralized finance frameworks, much like Ondo Finance or Ethereum Labs, as securities are doing. And the second approach involves integrating tokenization protocols into existing brokerage platforms that operate under SEC-registered entities are subject to federal securities laws. The legacy crypto and fintech platforms are already accustomed to facilitating cryptocurrency trading, so you would essentially expect them to seek a broader to their offerings to include tokenized securities, said Kaplan. And while many inside the latter camp do not operate digitally, they won't cede market share without a fight, said essentially Kaplan. And many are already investing in their own tokenization initiatives or partnering with fintechs and crypto firms to remain competitive. What's at stake is the next wave of users onboarding into the digital asset space. The question is then, will the brokerage industries enter the digital asset space, or will crypto platforms build the next generation markets for investors to buy and sell digital securities? The reason why the institutional players are not building tokenization platform is because the SEC needs to come up with, well, not the SEC this time around, but the CFTC, the SEC, the White House, and Congress need to pass legislations so there's no more gray areas. But Profimium likes to, play this gray area situation. Say there's no gray areas because Gary Gensler did a brilliant job. Perhaps the biggest demand driver for tokenized assets among traditional investors is that they want to access digital native essentially versions of all their assets in addition to crypto tokens through a single ecosystem they are comfortably using to meet a range of financial goals. Okay, the only reason I'm sharing you a news like this, for example, is because I want people to understand that sometimes you're going to get companies like this coming into the crypto space and just spewing absolute complete BS. Complete BS. On the point that the point that they're trying to make is that institutions are, not building essentially tokenization platforms for the market space and so on, and that they can because the SEC regulation that was put in place by Gary Gensler is actually a good one, and they don't understand why institutions won't go forward with it, because it was a terrible regulation. It's actually one that's been removed by the current SEC. But again, they were trying to make it look like the institutions are moving slow, but in fact is actually that it's not the institutions that are moving slow. They want to move at a rapid pace. Believe me, they want to move at a rapid pace. They're trying to green light blockchain companies to go public, left, right, and center if they can. What's actually happening is it's the foundational regulation part. So they're trying to make it look like we don't need regulations. The market can move forward. No, we need regulation to dump Fs. Now, what we're going to talk about next is essentially Brazil. So Brazil has came out and decided to block its crypto investments for retirement funds. Now, some countries have decided to put retirement funds in blockchain, and Brazil has decided to go against the latter. For example, South Korea has one of the biggest private pension fund companies, and that South Korean private pension company decided to invest into essentially BlackRock's Bitcoin ETFs and even Coinbase shares. And you even had Wisconsin essentially pension funds going towards BlackRock's ETF, Bitcoin ETF, and Fidelity's Bitcoin ETF as well. So we had, pension funds and essentially retirement funds and so on going towards blockchain investments. But here it is. Brazil decided to go the opposite way. In a new development, Brazil's top financial authority, the National Monetary Council, the CMF, has ruled that certain pension funds can no longer invest in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. The government believes that these investments are too risky for retirement savings. The decision is published under resolution, essentially affects closed pension funds, also known as entidades, essentially. These funds manage retirement savings for thousands of workers, including those in unions and private companies. Pension funds rely on safe and stable investments to ensure that their retirees receive their money in the future. Typically, they invest in bonds and stocks, which are seen as more secure than cryptocurrencies. The reason why Brazil wants their retirement funds staying in bonds, essentially, and stocks, well, mostly bonds, is because it's beneficial for the Brazilian currency, it's beneficial for the Brazilian government, that people keep their money in Brazilian bonds rather than essentially going towards the crypto assets. I'll give you a scenario. The United Kingdom decided to essentially, do a little study test to find out how many people are investing into UK bonds and UK services and UK companies when it comes to the stock market, when it comes to the British people. And they realized that not that many people are actually investing in British companies. British citizens are actually not really investing into British companies or into British bonds. They couldn't care less about them. And that more people are actually just investing into crypto. They see that as a better alternative than the foundation of essentially the United Kingdom. That's why Brazil decided to ban the idea of essentially retirement funds or pension funds essentially going towards crypto assets, because they want people to keep their money in Brazil's economy rather than put in crypto assets, because Brazil has no control over that, but Brazil has control over their retirement funds being in essentially the foundation of Brazil. Bitcoin and digital assets are also known for their price volatility, and their market value is not predicted, which, yes, fair enough. The Brazilian government feels that allowing pension funds to invest into crypto could put retirement savings at risk, which is also a fair statement. The CMF has completely banned these funds from buying Bitcoin or other virtual assets to prevent possible losses. The Ministry of Finance confirmed that the ban, essentially in an official statement, the ministry treated that risk that make them essentially suitable for pension funds. While Brazil restricts crypto investments for pension funds, some countries embrace them. In the United Kingdom, essentially, when they decided to do pension fund specialists and helped out pension funds invest 3% of their assets in Bitcoin last year, which is true. And then until they realized that people aren't really investing into UK, essentially, companies in the stock market, or UK, essentially, bonds. And the UK also tokenized their bonds, and they called it digital gilts when they tokenized the UK bond. And it turned out not many people wanted to buy them. The numbers just weren't there for them. Similarly, several states in the US are also exploring investments for their pension funds. In October 2024, Florida's chief financial essentially officer, Jimmy, urged the agency overseeing the state's retirement funds to explore Bitcoin investments. He asserted that the asset's reputation as a digital gold could offer a strict hedge against volatility of traditional asset classes. So there are essentially, as I said, there are states out there, essentially countries out there that don't mind their citizens putting their money towards essentially Bitcoin or any of the crypto assets when it comes to retirement funds. Brazil decided to go a different way because they want the control over people's assets. In February, Wisconsin State Investment Board essentially joined the growing trend, revealing it had invested $340 million in Bitcoin through BlackRock's IBIT ETF. These moves essentially show that some of the financial experts see Bitcoin as valuable long-term investments despite the risk. And the CMN clarified from Brazil that the ban only applies to closed pension funds, open pension funds, and individual retirement accounts offered by banks and insurance companies may still indirectly invest into crypto. So if you're a private company or a pension company in Brazil, you can still invest into crypto assets, and so can your clients. But if you're a government, essentially pension fund account, you're not allowed to invest into essentially blockchain, into cryptocurrencies, figures, because the government wants that money to stay in the government, and the private companies aren't really controlled by Brazil's government, so they couldn't care less about them. The financial agency essentially revealed that crypto investments can be made through exchange-traded funds, ETFs, or tokenized assets, and these products allow investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin without directly holding it. With many essentially in the crypto industry may see this as a setback, the Brazilian government is making it clear that it prioritizes financial security over high-risk investments. So the card they're playing is, crypto is too risky, Bitcoin's too risky, crypto in general is too risky, and that people shouldn't be putting their funds inside of it. But the ban is only for government pension funds, not the company pension fund, the private company pension funds, because they want that money to stay within Brazil's government. Now, moving off essentially Brazil's government to Japan's government. Japan to secure cryptocurrencies as legal financial products. According to a report by essentially Nikkei that came out from Japan, Japan's financial service agencies, the FSA, the country's regulatory body, is leaning towards tighter regulations on cryptocurrencies. To do so, the agency is considering classifying digital assets as financial products. The report further says that it is also planning to submit the legislative proposal by the start of 2026 to a parliament. Many analysts consider that the new law will essentially in Japan turn crypto investments into more like traditional financial assets and will add more rules to prevent fraud, investor trading, and market manipulation. Japan is getting to a stage essentially where they're coming out with their regulations. They're trying to build that foundation for the crypto space. They want to come in more towards the crypto space and so on. And they have always been, you could say quite friendly towards the crypto space, to be fairly honest. And they have tried to compete even with countries like the UAE, which pretty much have zero tax on crypto assets. So this change essentially showed that Japan is growing and accepting cryptocurrencies as a valid part of its financial system while ensuring better investor protection and clearer regulations. The legislative proposal have changed the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act of the FIEA. Currently, this act essentially is regulating the nation's stock market, bonds, and other financial products. These changes will help to make a clearer rules for digital assets and ensure that they follow similar rules as traditional financial markets. One of the important modifications is the introduction of insider trading restrictions. This restriction will stop people from using secret information for financial gains inside of crypto trading activities. And currently, there are no rules for Japan for their crypto market. This essentially raises concerns about its price market manipulation and unfair practices if they don't have any rules for the crypto space. This new rule will work with the existing financial regulations and will increase the security and transparency of crypto industries in the nation. Japan was the first country to accept Bitcoin payments back in 2017. It became one of the major economies to accept Bitcoin as a legal essential form of payment. Since then, it has also earned the top positions of one of the leading players inside the adoption of the cryptocurrency race. However, the growth of the crypto market fund, the growth of the crypto markets, the fraud, the hacking, and regulatory gaps have also been growing, which has led to the government to strengthen its rules and currently crypto investments, and the nation's taxed at around essentially 55%, which is now much more than 20%. Experts suggest that the cryptocurrency might be more appealing to big investors if they are classified as traditional financial products, if the tax are essentially lowered. According to Tiger Research senior analyst Jay Zhou, Combining cryptocurrency taxation with traditional financial instruments might attract more essentially institutional investors, which would lead to more stable markets and increased confidence in crypto investments. Japan is trying to make these regulatory changes to be a global leader in digital finance. Last year, the nation's lawmakers urged for making a national Bitcoin reserve, which shows the government's interest in crypto essentially is increasing. Additionally, the Japanese Bitcoin treasury from Metaplanet has already occurred around 3,350 BTC and is planned to buy even more. Metaplanet essentially is Japan's equivalent of MicroStrategy for the US. Though this new classification will make regulations stricter, the Japanese government is still focused on supporting crypto innovation and making sure that these rules don't slow down the growth of the industry, and the country is trying to balance protection and investors with technological process. Japan is planning to regulate their cryptocurrency with financial products by adding insider trading rules and by lowering their taxes to attract more investors. The country is trying to make these changes to the crypto space to make the industry much more safer, more organized, and experts believe that this approach might set an example for other countries to follow. So again, this is what's essentially happening behind the scenes. You know, Brazil, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes in terms of regulations and the foundation that's been built, not just by the US, but also by other countries around the world as well for the crypto space. But again, you know, everybody's focus was on the scene, which is tariffs, which is temporary, which is war, which is temporary. What isn't temporary is the long-standing foundation that's been built actually for the crypto space in terms of regulations and cases being dropped. Now, what we're going to talk about next is Ripple. So, here it is, Ripple. Ripple's RLUSD outpaces major stablecoins in terms of volume to TVL efficiency. Ripple's RLUSD has been doing tremendously well. In terms of, you know, market turbulence and so on, stablecoins tend to do extremely well. But Ripple's stablecoin has done better than the rest. And here it is. Ripple's stablecoin RLUSD has achieved the highest volume to TVL ratio at 39.49%, surpassing its competitors like USDT, USDC, and PayPal USD. And the data is there to prove it as well. So the XRP validators essentially recently highlighted Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin remarkable performance in the crypto market space. According to essentially the XRP validators, RLUSD is the most essentially capital efficient stablecoin in the entire crypto market space currently. It has the highest volume of TVL ratio at 37%, leaving the other top stablecoins far behind. CMC data CoinMarketCap confirms that this association showing RLUSD with an impressive 39.49% on the volume/market cap, essentially 24-hour index. This significantly outperforms other major stablecoins in the market, with Tether reporting only 36.45%, USDC reporting 15.02%, PayPal essentially trailing behind in terms of their stablecoin at 6.76%, but Ripple is at 39.49%, their RLUSD. Since its launch in December 2024, RLUSD's market capitalization has grown substantially, now exceeding $193.67 million. This growth has outpaced its internal essential projections, according to Ripple's executive Jack McDonald. So even Ripple, thought, this is tremendous. The way RLUSD is growing, it's actually growing beyond Ripple's own expectations. Who revealed that Ripple's team generally expected RLUSD to become one of the top 5 stablecoins by the end of the year. That's what RLUSD is aiming for, to become a top 5 stablecoin by the end of the year. This prediction aligns with the statements made earlier this month by Ripple's CEO Brad, indicating that the company's confidence in RLUSD's trajectory and market position. The stablecoin rapid essentially ascent suggests that Ripple's strict positioning in that stablecoin is bearing fruit faster than anticipated. So according to Ripple's own words, RLUSD is climbing at a rapid pace that they couldn't even see coming. In a remarkable development, RLUSD has experienced a dramatic 220% increase in trading volumes over the past 24 hours, reaching $81.2 million, according to CoinMarketCap data. This surge occurs against the backdrop of the broader cryptocurrency market volatility, highlighting the growing interest in Ripple stablecoin despite challenging market conditions. While RLUSD flourishes, many other crypto assets have recorded losses. Bitcoin dropped 1.81% in the past 24 hours, trading at $81,985 on early Monday. Trading essentially XRP and Cardano essentially experienced even steeper essentially declines, falling essentially 7%. But now sitting at 1% only. Stablecoins like RLUSD essentially serve a critical. Stablecoins like RLUSD serve a critical function inside the cryptocurrency ecosystem. They aim to maintain a one-to-one value with essentially less volatile assets, typically the US dollars, providing traders with a reliable means to enter and exit positions in a volatile crypto market space. Beyond trading utility, stablecoins have become increasingly valuable for businesses engaged in cross-border transactions. They enable faster and more efficient, cost-effective, essentially digital payments compared to traditional banking systems, eliminating intermediaries and reducing fees. RLUSD's exceptional performance and volume to TVL ratio suggests it's gaining practical traction among active traders who value efficient capital deployments. This efficiency metric indicates that RLUSD is achieving substantial trading volume relative to its total market capitalization, demonstrating strong market adoption and utility. As the stablecoin market continues to evolve, RLUSD's efficiency advantage could position it at favorably for continued growth, especially if it maintains its capital efficiency edge while expanding its market capitalization further. So it seems like RLUSD has passed Ripple's own expectations, and they do see it 100% being a top 5 essentially stablecoin by the end of the year. Top 5, and there are a lot of stablecoins. Obviously, everybody only knows USDT, USDC, but the list of stablecoins is tremendous inside the market space. And Ripple reaching the top 5 is incredible, and in my opinion, it could easily do it. Honestly, Ripple could easily essentially become top 5. In my opinion, RLUSD could become number 1 stablecoin because Tether, something fishy going on there, and also USDC has depegged once. And as I've said throughout this entire live show that you've been watching right now, a lot of things are happening on the scene, and everybody's distracted on them. Everybody's distracted on them. And just to give you an example that everybody's distracted on them, and that people are too distracted with what's happening on the scene rather than what's happening behind the scene. Right now on X, I can see on my screen the debates that are going on right now on X is, for example, war threats, Trump-Israel escalation on. And there's about 1,200 people listening to that on X right now. There's another one that says mega Israel first. There's about 316 people on that one. And it just goes on with the X spaces that are going on right now, with everybody distracted on tariffs, which is temporary. Everybody's distracted on Russia and Ukraine, which is temporary, war's temporary, and everybody's distracted on Iran and essentially US. And that's obviously going to be a regime change. The Iranian government's going to be replaced by the Crown Prince of Iran, by the Shah and so on, and that needs to happen. But all these are temporary for the market space. And what people should be focused on is what's behind the scenes, what's happening behind the scenes. And what's happening behind the scenes, CFTC just dropped their enforcement department because the crypto space is maturing, according to the CFTC. The FDIC has been more pressured to become more, essentially, even more crypto friendly, essentially. Banks and institutions are lining up. JP Morgan and Citibank are helping Circle go public right now. When all of this is happening, regulations are happening behind the scenes. Institutions are lining up. They're helping blockchain companies go public. So many positive things are actually happening to build that foundation for the United States. Not just inside the United States, but other countries are also building their own foundation right now, while everybody's focused on tariffs, temporarily, war, temporarily. What isn't temporarily, and it's going to be long-lasting and have a bright future ahead of itself, is what's happening behind the scenes, which is the foundation that's been laid in for the crypto space to advance forward. And if this was a bad time, if this was, essentially, if Trump is ruining America, if Trump is ruining the crypto space, if Trump is damaging and the crypto space is doomed, then why is essentially JP Morgan and Citi helping Circle go public now in this doomed, time period inside the crypto space? If the crypto space is finished, there's no point of the crypto space because Trump has ruined everything. Why is JP Morgan and Citibank essentially helping Circle go public now? Why is the regulations being built behind the scenes? Why are banks and institutions lining up to enter the market space? Why does the CFTC think the crypto space is now mature? Don't focus what's on the scene, focus what's happening behind the scenes, because there are too many people that's focused what's happening on the scenes. I mean, if you just go on the spaces right now, if you go to X spaces right now, the amount of X spaces that are happening on the war situation, the tariff situation and so on, there's about 1,000 people listening to Trump-Israel escalation war. That's what's happening on the scenes. Stick to what's happening behind the scenes. Now, on that note, if you're watching this for the first time ever, this essentially is, and just to point out one last thing, this reminds me of the gold situation, Fort Knox, when everybody was talking about Fort Knox and said, some people were saying it's empty, some people were saying there's nothing there, some people were saying, there were so many scenarios, and they had everybody busy talking about it, while something else was happening behind the scenes, as usual. So, on that note, we have reached the endings of tonight's lives. This essentially was the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is called the CMF Live. And this was episode 289 of the CMF Live. We're on episode 289 right now. If you want to tune in for the next episode of this live, you can tune in Monday to Friday at 11:25 p.m. GMT time, which is United Kingdom time. Tune to this live. If you watch this for the first time ever, if you watch this on X, follow me if you already haven't. Tune in Monday to Friday. If you watch this on YouTube and you're watching this for the first time ever as well, subscribe and tune in Monday to Friday as well. Tune in tomorrow's essential episode for episode 290. For episode 290 tomorrow. So this was CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles, and I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, vital information for you to know about, and I break down everything into a simple form so everybody has a better understanding of what's really happening around the world. And the disclaimer of this live show, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we also do Q&As on this live show as well every single night. So tune in tomorrow for episode 290 of the CMF Live. We have come to the endings right now. Thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who has liked this live on X, commented on this live on X outside live, and liked each other's comments outside live, and retweeted this live on X. And thank you so much to everyone who's liked this live if you watch this on YouTube. And everything I do provide is completely free of source. You can tune into this live Monday to Friday. You can join a Telegram group, which is free, or you can join us on X, essentially communities page, which is for this live as well, the Crypto Mouse Family, which is on my profile if you go to my X profile. Now, before we do go, obviously, let's go to the comment section first, and then we'll essentially call it a night and tune in tomorrow. Hello, CMF. Leaf, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? They were brought and paid for Mouse. Facts. Nice one, Mouse. Brazil is running scared. Facts. Let's go RLUSD. Let's go in. We all knew this was going to happen. Facts. So long, farewell, USDT. Absolutely facts. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. Thank you for the long, great live and great news. Let's go RLUSD. Let's go JPC tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Night, Miles and CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Thanks, Miles, and good night, CMF. See you tomorrow. Orphan, see you tomorrow, sometimes usually as well. Good night, Miles. Good night, Miles and CMF. Mike, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual, brother. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night. See you tomorrow, same time. See you tomorrow, same time. Autistic as well. Great show as usual, informative. Let's go, Curtis. So see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thanks for a great live. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. For you forever. Great live. Take care, all everyone. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment. Full support. Peace out. Let's go, Ray. Ray and Ian, thank you so much for the donations as well on tonight's live. Absolutely amazing. Thanks so much to both of you. Lena, thank you a bunch, Miles. Have a lovely night. All let's go. Lena, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Thanks, Miles. Appreciate you. Leaf, let's go. See you tomorrow, sometimes usual. Good night, Miles and family. Great live. Love you, brother. Many thanks. See you tomorrow. Ian, see you tomorrow, sometimes usual. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Same time as usual, for episode 290 of the CMF Live at 11:25 p.m. United Kingdom time. So same time you watch me today, you can watch me tomorrow, Monday to Friday. And tune in for episode 290 tomorrow. Follow, comment, share, retweet, subscribe. If you already haven't, go night. Good night, Miles and CMF. See you tomorrow, Stormy. Same time as usual. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. CMF, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. See you tomorrow, CMF.